Chilean police this Friday repressed a mobilization in support of the mapuche people in the capital, Santiago. Venezuela's government has approved the establishment of a new maritime territory for the creation of the Atlantic Seaboard Strategic Development Zone as part of measures to defend the country's sovereignty. And the Democratic Congress members are planning to introduce an article of impeachment against President Trump on Monday after he incited the riots at the Capitol that resulted in 5 deaths. Hello and welcome to TeleSUR English. I am Estefania Bravo from the headquarters of Quito, Ecuador. This is from the south. Chilean police have repressed a mobilization in support of the Mapuche people in the capital, Santiago, on Friday. Social organizations rallied in Dignity Square in an act of solidarity with the parents of the murdered Mapuche community member, Camilo Catrillanca. On Thursday, his relatives were prevented from entering the court to witness the sentencing of 7 former police officers charged with his murder. As well as being denied access to the courthouse, Catrillanca's relatives were also detained, including his 7-year-old daughter. Police were deployed to the square early on Friday to prevent the protests from taking place. Mapuche communities have stressed that they will continue to mobilize to demand that the government stops the military incursions into their territories, as well as forced evictions, and guarantee justice for the constant violations of their rights. Venezuela has approved the establishment of a new maritime territory for the creation of the Atlantic Seaboard Strategic Development Zone as part of measures to defend the country's sovereignty. President Nicolás Maduro signed the decree during a meeting with the National Defense Council. The president explained that the measure is part of policies to defend the country's continental space, interior marine areas, historical borders, and the resources discovered within them. The approval of the decree comes in the face of the ongoing territorial dispute with Guyana regarding the demarcation of their border and the Essequibo region.
Very interesting participation of these young people who will preside over and accompany the board of directors has emerged from the heart of the southern region, and I wanted to consider it very sincerely, and I wanted to reflect on it because it is a historic moment for the peoples of the south. We wanted to point out that the board of directors that has been designated today as those who will preside over the Latin American chapter of the Indigenous Parliament are elected deputies, which is unique in the world.
Newly installed chair of the Caribbean Community, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Rowley, has spent the night in a hospital after suffering a medical episode. He is expected to undergo a series of tests this morning, according to a statement from his office today. At around 5 p.m. local time on Friday, Dr. Rowley experienced discomfort and was rushed to the West Shore Medical Hospital for treatment. Initial reports indicated he had a cardiac-related issue. However, this was not confirmed by government officials who remain evasive about his condition. A conference Dr. Rowley had scheduled for this Saturday has also been postponed.
At this stage, as I say, the Prime Minister, he had some discomfort. He took the precautionary measure of coming in for a checkup, and that's what's happened. And of course, as you would expect, the doctors just want to run some more tests, and they will do what they have to do.
As far as you're aware, is this the first time he had such discomfort?
I don't know the Prime Minister's medical history, nor would I speculate on it. But I mean, I've been with him and he has been fully coherent. I mean, it is the Prime Minister. He's carrying on conversation, joking and this type of thing. He's in a good state. The affairs of government continue exactly as they are at this stage. The Prime Minister is the Prime Minister. I've been in touch with my other colleagues in the cabinet. We all continue to pray for him, and we all know the job that we have to do, which is our various ministerial portfolios. All correspondence coming out would come out from the office of the Prime Minister going forward, as just happened, and we just continue to wait. At this stage is an overnight observation.
Meanwhile, opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar extended well wishes to Dr. Rowley. She said, quote, "I wish Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley a swift and full recovery. My thoughts and prayers are with him and his family." Let's take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South, more news now. People living in favelas across Brazil's Rio de Janeiro are struggling to make ends meet in the face of the crisis sparked by the coronavirus pandemic. This is coupled with cuts to state subsidies and government aid. Many rely on food donations from charities and NGOs and are forced to invent news to survive.
We use what we get from the little grass selling to buy something, ingredients, so that tomorrow we can make something else to sell. So we are struggling to survive, even more so with a child. We are in a pandemic with a child and the government has cut off the aid, so we are trying to survive. The emergency aid has been cut off and we are in need, because that was really helpful. And now that we have no aid, the bags of food that the CNIF is giving us are helping us a lot. Things are very, very difficult during this time of pandemic, you see, because if there already was unemployment, it's even worse now. My husband's not having any sales at work, so I'm relying on these food donations to survive. We realize that women in this community are vulnerable even if they receive emergency aid. Some do, others don't. So the help that our institution, Women's Centers, offers to these women is very important.
The streets of Colombia's capital, Bogotá, were virtually empty on Friday as 30 million citizens entered a lockdown. The country's main cities began a strict 5-day quarantine on Thursday in a bid to relieve fast-growing pressure on hospitals following a sharp rise in COVID-19 infections. With 50 million inhabitants, the South American country ranks second in Latin America and the Caribbean in terms of the number of confirmed coronavirus cases at 1.73 million, while it has the third highest death toll at over 45,000.
If we had taken appropriate measures and precautions from the beginning, hitting the calls made to us by authorities, respecting social distancing, wearing masks and everything they have been warning about, surely we wouldn't have been in this situation.
I think that citizens should be the ones to care. Care should be personal. People should take their own biosecurity measures. Wear gloves, use sanitizer, wear face masks. Many people, not all, take things lightly.
We really lack a lot of culture to face these complicated situations, but it is also due to the people's lack of education.
And also in Colombia, violence against former guerrillas continues. On Thursday, the Common Alternative Revolutionary Force Party denounced the murder of Diego Maria Yule Rivera, a former combatant who was in the process of being reincorporated into society in the city of Cali. 3 former guerrillas have been killed so far in 2021, adding to the 252 signatories of the 2016 peace accords who have been murdered. The FARC party is demanding that authorities launch a proper investigation and arrest the perpetrators. Russia and China have raised opposition to a candidate from Fiji leading the top United Nations human rights body, creating a deadlock, just as the United States may seek to rejoin the forum it quit in 2018. The Human Rights Council's presidency rotates annually between regions and is usually agreed by consensus, with any contest typically resolved quickly and cordially. However, the current impasse means the only global intergovernmental body to promote and protect human rights is set to resume work in Geneva next week, with no leader for the first time in its 15-year history. While the Council's decisions are not legally binding, they carry political weight and the body can authorize probes into violations. It is not clear how the impasse will be solved. Let's take another short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South, more news now. 3 people were killed in Russia after an avalanche hit a resort in the Siberian city of Norilsk. A 38-year-old woman, her 48-year-old husband, and their 18-month-old child were among the dead. Meanwhile, a 14-year-old child was pulled from the snow and has been hospitalized with frostbite. Officials said the avalanche swept through a ski resort outside of the Antarctic city overnight. Emergency rescue workers are still searching for survivors. Russia's investigative committee has opened a criminal probe to determine if the building's owner had adequate safety measures in place.
There was an avalanche in Krasnoyarsk Krai. As a result, up to 6 buildings were buried under the snow. According to preliminary information, there may be people under the snow. Search and rescue operations are underway. The work of rescuers and volunteers made complicated by difficult weather conditions such as blizzards and strong winds.
At least 62 people on board an Indonesian Sriwijaya plane are feared dead as the aircraft is believed to have crashed into the sea. The Boeing 737 is reported to have lost contact with air traffic control, and flight tracking data has indicated that it might have plunged into a steep dive just minutes after takeoff. Jakarta airport officials have confirmed that 46 adults, 7 children, and 3 infants were on board of the craft, along with 6 crew members. Investigations are still ongoing.
Controllers at the Jakarta airport saw that the plane was not flying heading 75 degrees, but instead heading northwest. They asked the pilot to confirm heading. Not long after, within seconds, the plane went missing from the radar.
And 10 infants have been killed after a fire broke out in a hospital in the western part of India. The incident took place at a maternity ward inside the Bhandara district general hospital in the state of Maharashtra. Most of the dead infants were less than 3 months old. Preliminary investigations suggest the fire was caused by an electrical short circuit. Moving on, China has announced it is going to vaccinate all of its citizens from COVID-19 for free. The leader of the vaccine research and development team, Sheng Shongwei, said the government will soon start the public immunization program after purchasing vaccines from local manufacturing enterprises. This comes as COVID-19 cases steadily increase in the north of Hubei province.
Our country will provide free COVID-19 vaccines to all people, which means people do not have to pay a single cent for the vaccine. Enterprises have cost in the research and development, production, storage, and transportation of the vaccines. As a result, enterprises will price the COVID-19 vaccine as a public good based on costs, and the relevant government departments will follow the corresponding procedures and buy from enterprises at relevant prices, and then provide the vaccine free for all.
Shifting gears, Democratic Congress members are planning to introduce an article of impeachment against United States President Donald Trump on Monday after he incited the riot at the Capitol that resulted in 5 deaths at least. More than 150 Democrats have signed on the article of impeachment drafted by Representatives David Cicilline, Ted Lieu, and Jamie Raskin, which accuses the president of inciting an insurrection. If passed, it would make Trump the first president in the nation's history to be impeached twice. Meanwhile, Speaker Nancy Pelosi stated that all options are on the table if Trump does not leave office soon, including legislation to establish a commission under the 25th Amendment that could recommend the president's removal.
This is an emergency of the highest magnitude.
And meanwhile, addressing a press conference on his administration's plans once in office, U.S. President-elect Joe Biden refused to weigh in on the moves of the impeachment of Donald Trump, instead saying that the matter is up to the Congress.
What the Congress decides to do is for them to decide. But I'm going to have to, and they're going to have to be ready to hit the ground running, because when Kamala and I are sworn in, we're going to be introducing immediately significant pieces of legislation to deal with the virus, deal with the economy, and deal with economic growth. So we're going to do our job, and the Congress can decide how to proceed with theirs.
And furthermore, Joe Biden, President-elect, has called on the Senate to confirm his cabinet nominees promptly and fairly, particularly those involved in national security.
This will be the first cabinet ever that is evenly composed with as many women as men in the cabinet. This will be the first cabinet ever with a majority of people of color occupying this cabinet. And it has more than a dozen history-making appointments, including the first woman Secretary of Treasury, the first African-American Defense Secretary, the first openly gay cabinet member, and the first Native American cabinet secretary. We're also on track. We named a record 50 high-level appointments that are subject to president confirmation, more than any president ever elected has done. We've done our job. We've begun my job of naming these people. It's my expectation and hope that the Senate will now move to confirm these nominees promptly and fairly.
And President-elect Joe Biden has also slammed the Trump administration's distribution of the COVID-19 vaccines, as he noted that the effective distribution of the vaccine will be the greatest challenge faced by the country.
Vaccines give us hope, but the rollout has been a travesty. This will be the greatest operational challenge we will ever face as a nation. We're going to need billions of dollars to get the vaccines from a vial into someone's arm, the vaccination for millions of Americans.
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. For viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on StarSat channel 461 in South Africa and also on channel 539 in Nigeria. And also be sure to follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and of course on Instagram as well. And also be sure to follow me on Twitter at @TeleSUR. For TeleSUR English, I am Estefania Bravo. See you next time.